For people trying to come in online, they can't come in. The first item on the agenda on page 3 is the actually the first number. It's the sort of going on. I believe this is the last day of the year when the policy appearing in front of us. This is I would like to thank you for the work that you have done and for the assessment that you have evolved over the years. I believe the movement of a noted post that post it's half as long as it can be. But you know, signals in the so exactly it's the only nearest to the motor change. And you know, it's
Yeah, Chair, Your Honours, thanks very much. And yeah, it's a big thanks to the board. I think we can recognise that what we achieve can be done without solid partnership working, which has been a plan over the time I've been the licensing sergeant. I think that the licensing team at Clackmannanshire Council, all them a big thanks as well. And I think that the public in Clackmannan owe them a big thanks, and the board, with the amount of work that is on. A lot of the work that you don't want to see at the board, and that's because it's dealt with at an early stage. The licensing standards officer has been a great source of information and assistance to me over the years. And then not forgetting Leslie Ann, the amount of work she does behind the scenes is phenomenal, and I think the council are very lucky to have such dedicated staff. So it's a big thanks to me and a big thanks to them.
would you like to introduce your college?
Yep, apologies. So, down to my left, I'll be the new licensing sergeant, Sergeant Shirley Meldrum, who will be replacing myself, and I'll go down, I'll get your full support and will support you as well. And to my right is Inspector David Ryan. He is my supervisor, and due to his busy schedule, this is the first opportunity he's had to come and observe what goes on at a licensing board. He felt it was important to come and see what goes on at a licensing board, because ultimately he sits above me, and I mean, or Shirley might need to go to him for assistance with stuff, so that's why he's here this morning.
Welcome. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. First item on the agenda is are there any apologies? I have Councillor McClucky. That's only the one who received it. Are there any declarations of interest?
I was just going to say on one of the World Cup ones, the ones for the Johnston Hotel, I was going to step out because I'm there every week. That's really bad, but I usually can go over, but I just thought, although my thoughts on all the activities are the exact same, but I just thought I would step out just like this.
As someone went to think she got paper to do but you don't have anything to do with the running of that business.
No.
It's a question. I call it research. Page 3 on the agenda, as I say, is the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 26th of March. All was signed to the visitor break up the entrance to film trees. This includes council staff from other buildings. There are no planned fire evacuation drill around this today. If the fire alarm is activated during the visit, you must exit the building immediately. The council officers will direct you to the nearest fire exit, and will escort visitors to the building fire extinguisher point beside the silver line at the top of the corridor. Guilty staff should report to the floors assembly points. You should remain on your same point until directed to reoccupy the building and only re-enter once the fire marshal has advised it's safe to do so. Please do not attempt to leave the site by vehicle until cleared to do so by the fire marshal to ensure access is a kept clear for emergency vehicles. Please note that this is a public meeting and a member of the public may be in attendance. The meeting will be recorded by the clerk and published online for public viewing. The taking of photographs, including screenshots, audio or video recordings, are not permitted during the meeting unless express permission from myself. The members attending virtually activate their cameras, if possible to enable you to join by video. Sorry for that. And can all attendees mute their microphones when not speaking. We do not permit you to item unless I would like you to do so. If members attending virtually wish to speak on any point, please indicate by clicking on the raise your hand button. Members in the chamber should also raise their hand. I will bring it in at an appropriate time. If members will not be able to access all papers for a meeting, access all papers for a meeting, please indicate. As the statement. Everybody pays me. What's the page B of the minutes. Page 4 and page 5. Is that true and accurate reference of the meeting? So you know what you're saying. Item 4 is in the name of Tesco our lecture, but this one has already been discussed and decided. Don't know why it's in a minute to put it in the video. Now we're going to the meeting business. Sarah, right? Okay.
Good morning, Chair. The next stage of the meeting obviously relates to the individual applications for extended hours. Obviously, the legislation requires us to treat these individually and go through them one at a time, so you may have to give me the same thing open over again. I'll try to limit the way in which I do that. But we'll start with the first matter, which is application with reference number EXT16. Relates to the end of mucker. I can see that one there is here in relation to that. Is there all over about that? On agreement for the license holder, represented from the department, was a license. Yeah. The board members will have had plenty of time to read my report submission, the report that required to do in relation to all extended hours, and the board will also be familiar with the discussions that we had outlined over the World Cup policy prior to making the decision that we would take applications for the very first match that Scotland are represented in, which is on the 14th of June, kicked off at 1400 hours in the morning on Saturday night and Sunday morning. And will be estimated to finish somewhere around 4 AM. My limited knowledge of football tells me that sounds about right. The applications are all similar, so hopefully that part of it that I've just explained are all related to that football match, so won't have to repeat that. I've got no concerns in terms of the application for their mucker. The one has already indicated that the conditions that are proposed not cause any difficult relationship. Confirm that, and I would just suggest that the board decide whether or not the matter can be granted and whether or not it's necessary and expedient to apply the conditions suggested in Appendix A.
private buildings. And we have Lorna. Lorna, would you like to address what? Any questions for all?
Thanks. I'm just sorry, it's hard to go between them both. I think it's Appendix B, and it was just. I don't anticipate any more than 40 to 50 attendees. Sorry, I thought that meant minutes, right? Sorry, that my bad. It was just to obviously the conditions of the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal. Is that covered in that application? They are just, I could see it close till 5 o'clock. I just wondered if we need to put in specific on each of the bits to say that kind of general rule that we discussed that falls on from the guidance on the Scottish Government.
Yeah, the guidance we gave and to everybody that applied was to put a proposed terminal hour of 5 AM. We figured that it was very unlikely that the 4 AM finish, even with what can happen in football, delayed starts and stuff like that, it's very unlikely that it could go beyond that, was the assessment. I think every applicant I've spoke to, and I'm sure will be able to confirm that that is our position, will be very keen to close the door as soon as the final whistle is blown and have all our customers sent quietly home so that they can get on with the rest of their day. So although we're seeking to have the applications granted to 5 o'clock, the understanding from every applicant so far is that once the final whistle is going with the 15 minutes after that to allow for whatever discussions might take place, and that will allow a staged dispersal rather than everybody just rattling out the door exactly at the same time, and that's what that 5 AM will allow. I don't see that it causes any greater concern than it's not 5 o'clock. It's a pretty silly time in the morning anyway. I certainly won't be up watching it. For those that will make a difference in this.
And there was just a question in regards to say like half time in regards to smoking areas. How do you see to manage that situation? Just
rather than have them smoking out in front of the exit and travel on the way back, it's being to public. It's not a big issue.
Sorry, to help you with that question, there is a proposed condition on there that was designed specifically to manage those smokers. If you look at condition number 3, the suggestion is that anybody who leaves after the period immediately before the start of the game should not be allowed to re-enter. And I would suggest that includes leaving the licensed area, not necessarily the licensed premises. So if they were outside the smoking very further than an area quietly immediately in the vicinity of the premises, it's part of the licensed footprint. The condition to prevent re-entry, the idea behind that was to stop crowds of people coming out outside onto the main street, for instance, in places where they have a public footpath frontage at half time and talking about the first half and the voices raised, 2 beers down the throat and thing. And if that the premises involved across the board will have to manage that situation and make sure that there is adequate provision for their smokers or their smokers up to the last 90 minutes without, if they don't have an outdoor area that's part of a licensed footprint, their smokers will just have to manage that or not get back in. And that was that discussion has been common around Scotland, that they don't want crowds of people standing outside pubs at half time at 3 o'clock in the morning. Especially if it's not going Scotland's way, but that stage and the frustrations and things may well be there. We're very aware of the discussions about in Scotland that half time might be a flashpoint of people either saying I've had enough and going home. But if they leave the premises at half time, that's it, they're going home, there's no reason. That is if we can define around that very situation.
Having attended lots of football matches, I think some smokers can't even go 30 minutes without a cigarette, so it'll be interesting.
Okay, John. Yeah. Okay. So just, I suppose, it's not necessarily absolutely specific, but I suppose it was setting that kind of the standard for you applicants to come forward. So the key thing for me in looking at each application was obviously looking at, you know, a couple of key areas. Obviously the 15 minutes thereafter. So just to clarify that, because obviously there were different times that have been set. So for me, it was, you know, what's the outcome for today is trying to get that consistency. So if we're saying it's 15 minutes after, but obviously in a managed way, then that's absolutely fine. The dispersal element, so I think it's an important point here. Probably do want to hear what is the plan for each premises in terms of, you know, if people are going outside, how is that going to be managed? And whether it's smoking, but certainly the dispersal part of that as well to ensure that it's an orderly dispersal. So I think that's the key thing that I'd be keen to just hear from each applicant, but also the ticketed element. So we did talk about that, and I think that was popular coming through in terms of the consultation, but also the board were keen for that condition as well. So again, that's covered in this application. I'd be keen to hear if that's the approach of each applicant that's coming forward as well, just to kind of reassure. So I think that's the best way to take that planning element forward in terms of how many people are leaving the premises and how that's going to be managed safely. So I think that's all covered for this particular application, but that's the kind of, you know, approach I'd hopefully like to hear in terms of reassurance from the other applicants, if that's all right. Thanks.
But I think in terms of time, the system requires start time and end time for the extended hours application. It can't be a variable time. So we suggested 5 o'clock for exactly that reason. The board of course, at the leisure can change those times. They can suggest different extended hours. And if the board chose to offer extended hours to each of the applications, that's specified 15 minutes rather than a fixed time that's specified 15 minutes after the final, the sale of alcohol is 15 minutes after the sale of alcohol, and that provides a half-hour window for people to leave the board of it. Will we do that? And that perhaps is a useful approach from Police Scotland's point of view as well, that they will know that each of these premises will finish at a very specific time, 15 minutes after the final whistle. And then the 15 minutes drinking up time as it will be added on at the end of that, allowing a full half hour after the match is finished for a dispersal period. And that's a matter for the board if they want to specify rather than a fixed time, but a flexible time based on a specific occurrence, i.e. the final whistle. That's that difference. And we can manage the issue of the licenses of the extended hours documents. We can manage that. In effect, what we would like an additional condition rather than a specific term. And that's what the matter for the board to decide if they wish to do that. And I would agree if they do it with one consistent approach across the board would be desirable.
Is it worth doing that, setting that condition now then? Yeah, because I think it was that again. So we've got in the guidance note from obviously Scottish Government was premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal. So you know, I'd be keen to put that condition in to provide that flexibility as well, rather than setting an end time than others think on that.
So my understanding in terms of the legal process for doing that, I should will confirm that is the case that we would have to make a motion that was supported to alter the terminal hour from 5 o'clock to a time 15 minutes after the final whistle. to grant the application with the conditions and for a change to the terminal to that 15 minutes. That resolves everything that you're suggesting and sets that in stone, assuming the motion is supported and voted upon and there's no counter motion.
I'll let others comment as well. Yeah, I'm happy to put the motion, but I'll allow others to come in first for potentially different views.
Anyone else on the screen?
Can I put a proposal then, just following the guidances, for premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal? Sorry, can I just check? Well, would that have to state that no sale of alcohol after 50 minutes of the final whistle, or is it okay to have that 30 minutes? Or is that appropriate legal wise?
I would suggest the sale of alcohol must cease 15 minutes after the final whistle, and that gives the 15 minutes drinking up time, which forces the closure of the premises 30 minutes after. It has the same effect if you use the terminology you've used in the first instance. It may well be that you could sell alcohol in the legal position, but that's not a situation where you use that in terms of responsible drinking.
So the premises to stop selling alcohol 15 minutes after the final whistle, and premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow for appropriate dispersal would be the motion.
Can I just repeat, what's the Scottish Office of Government guidance again on that one? Because I think this whole dispersal thing is incredibly difficult to manage, particularly with Scotland. I've one that's put quite a lot of onus in the premises, but I do realise, you know, limits have to be set and guidelines are set. It's just how, yeah, it's 15 minutes. Yeah. 30 minutes, right. Right, okay. It seems quite tight, but I accept we've got to put a limit on it, so happy enough with the recommendation.
I think in terms of the manager, the vast majority of premises that have chosen to make this application are going to have a relatively small event. We're not going to have 500 people in any venue in Clackmannanshire. We don't get that Friday nights. We're not going to have it at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning and watch the football. It'll be relatively small scale thing I would expect. And in terms of the proposal that Council has made, that's exactly in line with some of the guidance that Scottish Government issued. And in terms of the dispersal, the bonus on the licence holder, I appreciate where you're coming from there. But it's simply a fact of life. If you run licensed premises and you want to stay open at 4 o'clock in the morning, the onus is on you to make sure that your customers are suitable and can behave at the point the time comes. They're not allowed to drink too much to the extent that they're making abuses of themselves. And there is a very, I would emphasise there is a very clear use on that. And if they fail to manage that situation, they may well find themselves back here in different circumstances. I can't make that clear that this is a major event in Scotland for football fans and other individuals alike. There will be disruption of members of the public who are not football fans, who may well be working on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock and may well be disturbed by revellers, the next door neighbours, people complaining that what they can't be disturbed by is as a result of a failure of licence holders to manage the crowd. So it is important that it's correct managed. Sure, understand some stuff.
I'll second it.
You've got the motion. All those in favour?
Sorry, Councillor Bennett. So the motion put forward by Councillor Lindsay, you put it forward, Councillor Law. Councillor Law. So the sale of alcohol to cease no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and also the premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal.
And sorry, the words are, can you just confirm that the motion included to apply the local conditions? Just wanted to clarify that I was definitely mentioned for the purpose of the minute.
Pretty simple. Shaking things. So you just go for it.
Everyone's in agreement to, or is everyone in agreement to this application?
Mr. Graham, thank you. So to reconfirm, your extended hours application is granted on the basis of to apply the local conditions, but also to the motion just granted to premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal, and for the sale of alcohol to cease no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle. Thank you for coming.
I know, I'm going to thank God.
The next one is in the name of Dean King. Unfortunately, the residents of Dean King didn't do it today. I believe Paul has
So I have, I wouldn't repeat the full circumstances. It's an identical application. This one has a proposed finishing time of 4:30, but I'm going to make an assumption that a similar motion may appear at the end of this. I've got no concerns with the application for Green King. Green King, an experienced organisation that have shown many late night and early morning sporting events in the past, including some in this area without any difficulty. They are represented today by Michael McDougall from TLT Solicitors, who unfortunately, because of our IT difficulty, has been unable to connect. I don't think I can add anything to the previous discussion on the other matter. I'm quite happy to stand on the information that I presented in relation to the first application, with the same caveat on the management of smokers, which I communicate directly to Michael in relation to Green King. I'm sure we've already had a discussion. I can move if there's no questions directly to me on that particular application. I can move directly to reading Mr. McDougall's presentation that he's kindly sent us. There are some questions.
Can I ask that, because obviously the application doesn't say that it'd be ticketed, but you get a motion forward to ask for it to be ticketed as well? Is that possible?
I know Scottish Government have made some sort of suggestion in their guidance that ticketing of an event is essential. I struggle with the legality of that in terms of the insisting that event organisers have a ticketed event. Certainly, I'm quite comfortable with them having a list of applicants, a list of attendees recorded. I think actually selling tickets and distributing tickets doesn't offer the control that you may think it does. Because if I buy a ticket and hand it to Martin and we still the ticket, the nature of the tickets doesn't confirm who's actually going to attend. So I've always been wary with a ticketing condition, but it's entirely a matter for the licensing board. If they want tickets for the event as a condition of the extended hours, then that's fine, and I'll liaise with the individual licence holders about how that is managed. Quite a few of them are operating the ticket event. If you want that across the board, I'm quite happy to liaise with them and make sure that that is appropriately managed.
Clerk, is that possible then to put for the ticket? Because I take on board the various comments, but we could say that about most ticketed events that people could just, but I think it's quite common for events to be ticketed and that's the way they're run, so take it. I would be able to put that in the motion and there's no legal issues there. Right.
Yeah, I just think from a consistency perspective, I think see the majority. I think it's the majority of applications that are coming at reference ticket. So I just think from a consistency point of view, I think it would be helpful if we're minded to go that way. And obviously we'll discuss that. And as I say, it came through the consultation with licence holders as well. So I think it would be the right thing to do just to have a consistent approach towards ticketed event or ticketed session.
I was just going to wait until, it was just because that was a question to obviously for the officer, and then I was going to wait until he did his, the input from the legal applicant. He's been on the favourite, and then I was going to put it forward.
Just while there's discussions ongoing, would it be appropriate for me to be in contact with Michael McDougall just to ascertain Green King's position on ticketing? I think it's really, I'm quite happy. I understand that you can hear some of the proceedings. I just want to make sure that you can hear it.
I should represent that as well. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sure you'll answer the call. Put your mind at ease as the law is in the thinking and in the doing tickets. They just didn't know that it was to mention it in the application, but they have an intention and a commitment to do a ticket event.
Put the motion forward then. Is that cool?
So on behalf of the town, I'll just read the site, he's written it to me, says, good morning, Your Honours, here, apologies that the area manager, the premises manager were unable to attend in person today due to other commitments. Given that this application appears to be on all fours with the policy, if anyone has much to say this morning, pleased to say that all conditions suggested can be accepted, contribution within any condition that relates to ticket. As Your Honours will appreciate, being kind of an experienced licensed holder from an assistant premises manager and a tenant preparing the policy that's required by the other conditions and also in risk assessing the premises and sport televisions and their experience in showing sporting events. The event will be ticketed. It's actually written in the submission and I haven't read to the end. he's happy to take any questions, which obviously isn't going to be that possible unless you get serious questions for checking the leave. And he would move to the grounds of the application.
So I propose the motion, it should be ticketed entry to support the planning and monitoring of the event, the premises to cease. Alcohol sale no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal, and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied.
That's local conditions on appendix B.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
If you have the motion, all in favor of the motion? All in favor of the application? Yep.
In conclusion, the extended hours application for drinking retailing has been granted and the local conditions in appendix B to be applied. The further conditions have also been applied that there should be ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease out of alcohol sale no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal.
Solid. But then we go into an application from Mr. Kenneth Stewart. Mr. Stewart,
There's no representative here from the bridge on that I can see.
okay.
We are definitely not reiterate everything I've said. It's a similar application. On this occasion, the time is identified as 500, but obviously I'll expect to hear a motion amending that in the terminal hour. I've got no concerns. I've had discussions with the actual licence holder for the premises over management of the event, and she indicated that there'd be no difficulty in complying with any conditions that the board sought to put on. I think in the discussions, the licence holder did indicate that it would be by invitation stroke ticket. In any case, so I expect there'll be no difficulty with that.
I have a motion to propose. It should be a ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event, the premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal, and the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied.
A second or question? That's a lot. So in general, the motion, do we all agree with the motion? When we hear the motion, do we agree to grant this application?
To conclude, the extended hours application for the bridge end has been granted. The following local condition need to be applied. It should be ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow the dispersal.
And for local conditions in Appendix B to be applied.
So I said at the start.
Okay.
Next application is EXT 26, it's for Broomhall Castle in Main Street. The applicant is Kevin Bernard, or the applicant's agent is Kevin Bernard. This premises are operated by the same licence holder as the Bridge. So the conversations that I've had applied to both premises, again, I've got no concerns in relation to what's being sought in terms of areas for the manage. And I mean, nothing to add unless there's any specific questions.
Have a motion. There should be a ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease after the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle, to allow appropriate local conditions in Appendix B to be applied.
Let's look here, this is Nixon job. You all see on, you look at the motion, you all agree on the motion. We had the motion to get all of the application.
So to conclude, the extended hours application, by Mr Kevin Barnard for Broomhall Castle Hotel has been granted. On the following conditions, it should be a ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied. Thank you.
Next on the list is the Johnson Animals. I can see Mr. Pierce sitting in the bench and briefing patiently.
Just kill it.
I'm just supposed to note something slightly different on this occasion. The terminal proposed by the applicant was only 415. Like all the other terminals, it's to order at liberty to change and propose new terminal hours. So even though it says 415, there's a possibility that that game might not finish with that if there was even a short delay in the start. The board can make a motion in the same terms as the previous applications if that's what they wish to do to ensure that we don't run into difficulty at 415 and the game is still ongoing. And Mr. Cairns is trying to remove his customers in extra time.
Mr. Kerr, would you like to address the board?
Use, you know, CA, and you know, also, I was wondering, in case not, so, you know, maybe small plant, as for on. Obviously, the spells as well, I was concerned that, close with the blank, 5 o'clock, just to give that extra time, he might be engaged with the board, as this special, definitely, all the sleep at one point, I've always said that, you know, I mean, I think, these are special, see what that means.
Okay. That's good. Any motion?
To be honest, I think the application really details that, but to ensure that we get that consistency and you've got the flexibility as well, like we say, we're not, you're not having to remove people because the games are on will apply the same motion, if that's okay. So, surprise, should be a ticketed entries for planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied. That's the motion.
You want to second it?
I'm happy to second. And also feel Councillor Law had to exclude herself from this because we've got a managerial thing on. We have been involved, we're there in all of these pubs.
Is there not somebody? Okay, we've had the motion, you all agree on the motion. Having had the motion, you all agree the application?
To conclude, Mr Cairns, your extended hours application has been granted for the Johnson Arms Hotel. Per the conditions, it should be a ticket entry support planning and monitoring of the event. The premise to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 50 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied. Thank you for coming today.
Okay.
Moving on to the Turnpike Tavern, I don't see any representative for the Turnpike here today, but likewise I will stand on the previous submissions that I don't have any concerns about the nature of the application. That one, it suggests a 4:30 finish, but I'm not going to make an assumption that the board will make an alteration to that to coincide with the consistent approach of the other ones. I am fairly certain there will be no difficulty with them operating a ticket event as well, and I'll assist them through that process if we have any difficulty with the decision of the board.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
Yes, we did. It should be ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied.
Can I have a second, please? Yes, okay. Did you hear the motion, yeah? You have the motion. Yes. Well, haven't you had the motion? Do we all agree with it? And have we agreed with the motion? Do we agree with the application? Me.
To conclude, the extended hours application for the Turnpike Tavern has been granted for the following conditions. It should be ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premise to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Next we have Chalmers. I can see Mr. Lackett representing Chalmers sitting in the public gallery. Would you want to join us? Chalmers is a slightly different situation. They are a nightclub with the ability to show live or recorded sport. They are only seeking an additional hour and a few minutes on top of the normal terminal, so little changes for Chalmers. They're already subject to a number of late hours opening conditions in relation to shielding and dispersal, stuff like that, which they would have to continue to comply with. Regardless of the extended hours, and I'm sure they will. In terms of the terminal proposed terminal for 4 AM, I expect that there's a possibility and probably a likelihood that might not just be good enough for the end of the game if there is any sort of delayed start at all. So obviously the board will obviously take that into consideration with all the previous decisions as well. I don't think I've got anything further to add. I feel certain, I've known Mr. Lackett for many years now, so I feel certain that a ticketed event will cause him no difficulty in relation to the showing of the football side of the business.
do you have any comments to make about?
No, that's it. Obviously, we're already subject to discussion. So we're regularly open till 3 o'clock anyway, so it's an extra hour and a bit. Obviously, the local conditions to give us the extra half an hour, just the same as everything else. It's just creates that standard
across the board, but we have no any issues with our tickets because obviously most of our customers come as every week and we already operate a ticket policy, well, need a ticket to get entry to the place. So we certainly don't have any issues with that.
But you don't have any concern with the special?
No, we regularly deal with big crowds. We're not expecting this to be any different. We're not expecting. Could be quiet. People could be going to pubs and watching the announcements. So it's just going to be a regular Saturday, just an extra hour. I'm not expecting any, obviously, any masses of attendance.
Thank you. Member, do you have any questions? All over that. Do you have any motion?
Motion. It should be a ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for local conditions and if needs to be applied.
Happy to sell it.
Just for local conditions, obviously, our closing time is, I find that that's not going to affect that because the kick-off's 2 o'clock. So, I think that one of the conditions was like once the match starts, like one.
I think I don't know.
Turn your mic off.
I think the local condition would apply in terms of people leaving and not being able to re-enter, which we apply as a general policy. Once they're out the door at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, they're generally not getting re-entry anyway. You've got an adequate outdoor smoking area, so the normal customers that don't want to stay for the football, I'm sure will disperse it at 1:30 and those wishing to remain for the football show will be fine. As those that are in the premises at the start of football can't leave and come back in, which you wouldn't allow in normal circumstances. So that's fine. You could still allow people into the premises right up until 10 minutes before the kick-off if you so wished. All the premises have been granted a license. They would be allowed that.
Well, once again, I would hear the motion and the clarification given to the applicant. Are we happy with the motion? And haven't heard the motion, do you agree with the application?
To conclude, the external hours application for channels has been granted for the following conditions. It should be a ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premise to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for local conditions and appendix B to be applied. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Next to the application for trustings in relation to the inventory. Double check if there's nothing unusual in that. But it looks very similar to all other applications with a proposed finishing time of 5 AM. I have no difficulty with this, but I just want to check something though, because we understand that at this moment in time, they may not have a premises manager in place, and it causes me a concern that an event of this nature at 2 o'clock in the morning is ongoing in the absence of a premises manager. I'm not talking about, I know the conditions suggest a premises manager or other personal licence holder who normally works at the premises must be on the premises for the duration of the event. But I would be concerned that there was no premises manager, even if the premises manager is not going to be working at the event. I would be concerned that a premises that has no premises manager in place at the time benefiting from these additional hours. I think a premises manager is a key feature of licensed premises it's one of the very strong features in a licence in Scotland Act in terms of responsibility and management. And I'm fairly confident that nobody from Trust Inns, who are an Edinburgh-based licensing company, licensed premises company, that nobody from that specific organisation that hold the licence are going to be present on the premises. So therefore, if there is no premises manager even in post at the time, then I have a difficulty with this extended hours being granted. This news that came to me, it's not, it would have been referred to in the report separately, but the information about the premises manager departing has only came to me yesterday. I found it in an email yesterday that the appointing premises manager was indicating that they no longer work there. We've had no formal notification from Trust Inns that this is the case yet. And they would have a period of 6 weeks to trade without a premises manager in the normal trade while they wait to source of appoint a new one. However, that 6 week period, by my counting, takes us beyond the date of this match. And I think in terms of my concerns about compliance with the licensing objectives, the lack of a premises manager would create a difficulty for me in my mind about the overall responsibility, liability and management of the premises if no such premises manager had been reappointed. So I suppose what I'm saying is I would seek an amendment to local condition number 1 to read that premises manager must be appointed to the premises, and that the premises manager or another personal licence holder who normally works at the premises must be on the premises for the duration of the extended hours. So otherwise, I suppose what I'm saying in the absence of that, I'm not comfortable with the application we've been granted if they're unable to comply with that condition.
Can you repeat your amendment to?
Yes, that a premises manager must be appointed to the premises, and that this premises manager or another personal licence holder who normally works at the premises must be on the premises for the duration of the extended hours. Yes. Of course, the board of the government is all that.
I'm happy to propose that amendment because I was going to ask if there was a deferral for that, but this makes it a bit more, I think, easier and administrative for that to be in writing that this is only granted if that's put in place. So I'm happy to propose that amendment if that's how administrative it works.
To propose the condition that the premises manager must be.
Yeah, as the clerk just wrote down the amendment that was given, I'd be happy.
Yeah, just something.
Yeah, so, right. You want me to amend the motion?
Okay, well, it's not the same amendment as the last time.
Yeah.
Alteration to.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, so I'll say this and then we can just add that bit that you can. Yeah, you're fine, right, so the motion would be, it should be a ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the events, the premises to cease sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal, and local conditions and appendix B to be applied, however, condition 1 to be amended as per the note that you have there.
Yeah, the premise manager must be appointed, and this premise manager or another personal licence holder who normally works at the premises must be on the premises for the duration of the extended hours.
Now, there was a second difference. I noticed that there was a small alteration there on the application. It doesn't have a main street.
What?
The application is one, what is the 45-47 Main Street,
No, it's the way that the postcodes work and how they pull the address over that comes up as Alva and not everybody.
but not Main Street.
Well, it's Main Street and Tullbody, but that's what I'm saying. It's the way that the postcodes where when you automatically pull up postcode address, like say from postcode Findlay the Royal Mail, it'll come up St Allan rather than Tullibody.
So it's wrong with the
Like the correct postal address will be 45 to 47 Main Street, Tullibody, Owl. So the postal town is correct. It's just simply the gazetteer that we use for pulling information through often misses the individual towns and they're all part of the Owl postcode area.
Now we've heard the motion. And it's been seconded. Are we happy with the motion? And haven't had the motion, are we happy with the application?
To conclude, the extended hours application for the trust ends has been granted per full conditions. There should be a ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premise to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal. And for the local condition appendix B to be applied. However, for number one of the local conditions, the premise manager must be appointed, and this premise manager or another person license holder who normally works in the premises must be on the premise for the duration of the extended hours.
Okay, well then, now we move on to the next application.
Next application is under reference number EXT45 in the name of Craig Stewart for the Royal. It's in the corner there.
This case in
I'll stand on most of what I've said in the previous applications, other than anything about Mr. Stewart's far superior knowledge of the Scottish football system than mine. When I previously mentioned there's a possibility that the event may go on beyond 4 AM, he may sit and tell me that I'm talking nonsense, and that'll be absolutely done and dusted by 4. But I'll stand on what's been previously said. The application for the so it's a 4 AM finish. And I feel fairly confident in saying that I sense a motion that we perhaps amend that slightly to take into account of the timing of the final whistle rather than a specific time.
Do we have any questions for that? No. Sorry, I thought it was thought. We'll have an amendment.
Yes, there should be a ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 50 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in appendix B to be applied.
You have a second bit of that?
I haven't seconded that, Chair.
Thank you. Have we heard the motion? Do we all agree with the motion? And having heard that, do we agree with the application?
To conclude, Mr. Stewart, the extended hours application has been granted for the Royal Oak per the following conditions. It should be ticket entry to support planning and monitoring the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle. The premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in appendix B to be applied. Thank you for coming. Do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, we pretty much think that we said you find that get out in this part of the bottom of the who use their funds, what's with one way using one of the main hand and all you use laptop and no it's not the corners of
No, I did enjoy your details of the event and your application. Thank you.
It's been no running competitions near bus stops as well. Colleagues in Telemoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, the volunteer arms, you can see Mr. Black, Palmer, who's the license holder for the volunteer arms. I've spoken to Mr. Black. I'll stand on the previous submissions about stuff in different years. Mr. Black is probably one of the more experienced hosts of sporting events, being a follower of the correctly shaped balls for chasing around the park, rather than the round one that seems much easier to chase around. Mr. Black's run a number of ticketed private events for rugby, significant rugby matches with no difficulty. I would imagine we'll take the same approach to the running of this event. I can see he's got a limited number of people. I feel fairly certain he'll have an invitation list, and we'll be more than happy to convert an invitation list and assign the tickets for those that are attending. As I've noted, he has indicated that of course he goes to midnight is the no entrance hall after that, which is in line with other sport events in Firm. He's closed the doors quite significantly before the start of the games. I'm sure that they'll pass and trade things and seeing that the premises are open for the event. I've got no concerns at all.
The Black, do you have anything?
The only concern I've got is just been listening to you there on. I think the half hour after that means today, I think that everybody's going to be here half an hour after the game. It just disperse. I mean, I think people just go away to work on sport at the ball Sunday morning. I don't see many staying away at the match, out. And also just to make the point clear that my only concern is I don't know how somebody's leaving at that dispersal at that time as well. So there is a noise. There's no automatic if we see it from the licensed premise today, which is the more these guys will do a job better than I could do for them. So I know they'll get away with that as well. That's my only one concern at this meeting. Because you've got a license, I think see like the noise is coming from you. But any ask me to do it, it's just it's not. I will be closed the doors early, and what you have lots of names that not a handbag that I know is going to be okay to or going to that.
In terms of dispersal, of course, it's entirely up to the individual operators to manage that. If they feel that they want to whisk everybody out the door immediately the final whistle is blown and they can manage that, I don't know, then that's fine. There's no requirement to. I think that I wonder if there's been a misunderstanding. I hope not, but there's no requirement to stay 15 minutes after the final whistle or 30 minutes after the final whistle. There's no requirement to remain open. These are just the maximum numbers that the board supported to get to all the previous applicants. If a particular business chooses right on the final whistle to say thanks lads and chooses to stop serving alcohol 15 minutes before the anticipated time of the final whistle to allow the sale of alcohol to be well and truly when I'm done with it, the time the match is finished, that's it. Each licence holder is at that liberty to do so. No requirement to continue selling alcohol up to it. It's just not permitted to. Big difference between permission and requirement. And I'm sure that will be managed accordingly across all the licensed premises so far.
Thank you.
Just before the motion forward, I would say we did have a discussion prior to the licensing board, and it was brought up that we are very aware that there will be other people outside celebrating or watching the game at home, and that was discussed with the police, and that is also why we have decided only this game that we were going to make that had to put in that specific license. So we are very aware, and the police are obviously aware of that as well. So it wasn't that we were targeting licensed premises, obviously that's the one that we have to look at under the licensing board, so just to kind of reassure you that it wasn't. Yeah.
It's, I don't see a problem with the stairs, the place that is to those. With the hands and anything else, but oh, that and for one on, we would see a million that's one of the elements. I don't see this work on most people need, but it's so we have in back. So I can ask them, it's so the stairs problem with the more. It just needs to make that we are running with us and we all work with stuff people fight us. You know, people rather than more minutes and damage to do much policy, but we make the last year under the local problem. Majority of people will leave. That's what we see. It's the question of the
Cool. So, motion, it should be ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event, the premise to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes and after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal, and the conditions in Appendix B to be applied.
Second that, and really echo what Councillor Law and Mr. Black was saying, that I don't think any of us have really the hindsight to determine what will happen with dispersal. I just know it's a very difficult issue at times, having worked on the other side of the bar, and dare I say the Celtic game is a demonstration of that. They can't see ahead as to what events might occur, whether the game's delayed or not. So I'm quite happy that we're following the general Scottish Office guidance on this and that applying at all level. So happy to second.
Okay, gentlemen, you've heard the motion. Are we quite happy with the motion? Having heard that, are we quite happy with the application?
To conclude, Mr. Black, your 10 hours application for Lordly Arms has been granted, subject to the following conditions. It should be ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied. Thank you very much.
Bring swiftly along to the Mansfield Arms. You can see all of our group sitting with the public gallery in relation to that application. Cover anything to add to my previous submissions with some information detail OEM however that appears now to be relatively relevant. It's the board are making a suitable amendment in each case. I don't think I've anything to add. No concerns about the way the premises are managed.
Okay. Would you like to address the motion? Can you press the button on your mic and middle button?
Sorry. Good morning. Yeah, I think we've kind of covered up all the other previous applications really. Yeah, just hoping we can pass it. I think I'm pretty much the same as everybody else, checking in, closing the doors at midnight. And as the previous applicant, the volunteer at the notice that will have many people wanting to hang around past school time really and just
Okay. So, you want to come in? No? Okay, I apologize.
But I know this must seem to everybody really administrative, but unfortunately we have to go through all the applications, and also I think it's good that we're seeing consistency for all licensed premises. So I know it might seem a bit kind of tick box administrative, but it's quite important and that we're treating everybody the same. So it should be a ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal, and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied.
Prepared the motion, which has been seconded. Are we happy with the motion? And haven't heard the motion, are we happy with the application? Agreed.
Mr. Graham, your extended hours application for Mansfield Alarms has been granted and per the following conditions. It should be ticket entry support, planning and moving event, the premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local condition and things need to be applied. Thank you for coming today.
Moving on to reference TXT 51, in the name of Suzanne Dixon. I think I saw a note suggesting that Suzanne Dixon was on holiday and intended apologies for being unable to attend today. Likewise, I stand on the information I previously provided and the no concern with the way the bounces were managed. I've got no concern with anything. It's in the application. It looks like a relatively small scale of event. And I'm quite certain with the words of Suzanne over the years that she'll have no difficulty converting whatever invitation list or diary that she will then keep it for the event into a ticketed process.
Okay. You have any motion on this application?
It should be a ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for local conditions and appendix B to be applied.
A second for that one? Yeah. Are we happy with the motion? Haven't heard the motion, are we happy with the application?
Chair, ladies and councillor, thank you. So to conclude, the extended hours application for Pepe's Bar at 12 Mile Place has been granted for subject to the following conditions. It should be a ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event, the premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in appendix B to be applied.
If you're happy, you know, there's not many left.
So say we're almost there. The second last application on my list is EXT 52. So the name of Mark Wexland for Dunlap House Hotel. When the status, Mr. Westland, but I can see that he's not here today. But again, I've got no concerns about the premises or the operation of the premises. Operations are pretty standard. In the future, it'll be a small scale event. Offering a new thing, the televising of the football with some drinks and snacks, possible some more food. I don't imagine there'll be any difficulty with ticketing from Mr. Lewis. I can imagine that that's probably already in place.
Any questions before?
Proposed motion.
Do you have any motion?
Proposed motion, it should be ticketed entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for local conditions and appendix B to be applied.
Having heard the motion, do we agree with the motion?
Happy to second, Chair.
Aye.
Sorry, you
Sorry, I'm jumping in.
happy to second that.
I
Aye, sorry, I said.
haven't agreed the motion, do we agree the application?
And I confirm, Julie, that Councillor Lee agrees with that application also. Thank you. So to conclude, the extended hours application for Clackmannanshire House Hotel has been granted, but subject to the following conditions. There should be ticket entries for planning and monitoring of the event. The premise to cease sale of alcohol no more than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for local conditions in appendix B to be applied.
Okay, and the final one, Bob?
On this application for the Crown and Alva, I can see Mr. Polly sitting in the background there, and you want to come up in here and take a seat. I'll just explain, this was a late addition, part of the reason that the board members will be aware and understand that maybe I've already explained that you should really explain it again for the purposes of the minute with this late addition was added. We recently moved extended hours applications very recently on the net call system that we've been using for online applications. We noticed an issue, a minor issue, whereby applicants, when they're completing the process properly, when the length of the screen to make payments, that would result in, if they didn't return to the correct screen to finish the application and the application is being aborted. So Mr. Polly correctly lodged an application in good time and paid for that application. However, a tiny step was missed out that resulted in the application being aborted. Felt in the circumstances of the new technology that it was only fair that we gave them the opportunity to resubmit a new application, which was submitted last week and managed to get to today's licence. We Scotland were properly consulted in terms of the process of the way application and made no comment. I'm not sure if that is recorded somewhere, but I think it's important to listen that we Scotland didn't miss out on that consultation opportunity. And likewise, I was happy to have it included in the appendix or that relate to my initial report. Again, I've got nothing further to add to what's been initially said. Mr. Polly has also managed out of hours sporting events in the past. We've got the management of the plan, his application relates to a 4 o'clock finish. It looks like a kind of larger event than some of the others with 80 tickets available. Mr. Paul has indicated both his son and himself both experienced so will be working on the premises all night for the duration of the event. I don't anticipate any difficulty other than that.
Okay, do we have any questions for Paul? Do we have any questions for Mr. Polly? Yeah. You've been in charge of,
No, nothing to add.
Mr. Paul, you have been in charge of your application.
So I know, basically invite both for the sales assistants.
Okay. Do you have any motions?
It should be a ticket entry to support planning and monitoring of the event. The premises to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premises to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions and appendix B to be applied.
Do you have a second for the motion?
I'm happy to speak to one of my fellow Alva councillors.
Yes, okay. Now, having heard the motion, do we accept the motion? And having heard that, do we accept the application?
The council Lee is in agreement also online. So to conclude, Ms Polly, your extended hours application has been granted, subject to the following conditions. It should be ticket entry to support planning monitoring of the event, premise to cease the sale of alcohol no later than 15 minutes after the final whistle, and the premise to close no later than 30 minutes after the final whistle to allow appropriate dispersal and for the local conditions in Appendix B to be applied. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. That concludes the business for today.
Well, just before we conclude the business, I could take time to thank Sergeant Bellingham for the support that he's offered us over the years. We know from the licensing team, the support and the relationship we have with Police Scotland is very strong and is easily the best assistance that we have on a day-to-day basis when we're looking through all the stuff that we keep away from you guys. And I think that's something that we didn't have that relationship, you would be far busier. The work was done, so I would just like to wish Sergeant all well in his new post, all the best in his new post. I'm sure he'll smash it. I don't get to use that phrase at the minute, but I look forward to working with Charlene going forward.
Thanks very much, Paul. As I said earlier on, I'm not able to repeat myself, but yeah, it's thanks to yourself within the licensing team, the wider licensing team, and obviously the board, and I've got absolutely no doubt that the strong relationship we've got with the licensing team and the board will no doubt continue in the safe hands of Charlene. So thanks very much.
Can I just check, just in regards to the Crown's application, do we know if there was any other ones that had that issue, that we might have expected an application that's not communicating through?
We vetted the aborted applications. We had there wasn't that many. Made contact with everybody that we could in that aborted list. All the ones I made contact with had actually said that they've changed their mind anyway. And the others were given the opportunity to reapply if they wish. But the decision was identified quite early on. There was still at the time initially identified that there was still enough time to apply anyway. So some of those on that list that we've heard today may well have also been aborted applications. The reason the Crown stood out was that Mr. Polly had made an application or made contact with me to ascertain how his application was. He'd actually seen the published list and said, my name is not on that. And it was only when we looked a little bit deeper, something, not all of the aborted applications were showing up that we were initially searching for them, but we have since carried out a deeper search and looking. We're relatively comfortable that everybody that tried to apply is either here today or had changed their mind.
Can I just seek further clarification because I wasn't actually at the last one. So that's it in terms of we set a time limit, and these are all the pubs and establishments that are likely to want the opening hours for that Haiti game. We're not going to consider any others at this stage now as a licensing board. Is that correct?
Yeah, we set a fairly hard deadline of just earlier in April for applications. The other side of that was every individual licence holder that had a right to show why the recorded sports was written. We published it on social media, we published it on the web page, and in between that I contacted a fair number of the premises that hadn't indicated that they wanted to apply to ascertain if they were likely to apply. We have had a couple of inquiries last week. The one that bought the application as such. They've been an application that was lodged last week that was not rejected, but because of the process and time that could only go to the next licensing board, which is on the 16th of June. Which would be after the events, and that individual has been advised that his application is likely to raise and return. There's only one line of that we have a physical application, you are not going to determine, like will be presented at the next licensing board or to draw in the end. We felt we gave a great deal of publicity to the process, that it was unfair on the board to even considering forming some sort of an emergency board between now and the 14th. Obviously, if a particular set of unusual circumstances comes to us, there may be a way that it can be facilitated. We have facilitated short notice, extended hours in the past for funerals and the like, but it would have to be a special circumstance. My view would be that it'd have to be a special set of circumstances, and that decision on the special set of circumstances would be one for the board that would be dealt with. Says the applicant that was last week there was nothing special about the circumstances surrounding his lateness other than he forgot. Yeah, I'm comfortable that we will have no more applications, or very unlikely that any more applications are presented for extended. And we should not have the longest will be now to have hours and some information that will be shared with them later today about those that don't have hours that may have indicated they intend to open.
That concludes the witness. Thank you very much for your attendance. And please have a good weekend. Thank you.
No, sorry, it's not for me. It's